Now you're listening into Paul's Unscripted podcast.
Welcome back, guys. In today's podcast, we're going to have a lineup of soon-to-be biomedical scientists whom going to explain and elaborate more on the COVID-19 situation and also on COVID-19 update.
Okay, hi everyone. So we know that nowadays people always talking about coronavirus, right? So same goes to the news, social media that always keeping updates about this coronavirus. But I want to ask Nazatul, do you have some idea what is coronavirus actually?
Okay, Yin. According to the World Health Organization (WHO), the coronavirus is a large family of the viruses that can infect birds and mammals, which include us as a human. It is not something new, as different strains of this virus has been causing several outbreaks to the world. For instance, the severe acute respiratory syndrome (SARS) pandemic that occurred in 2003. And also the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome (MERS) that firstly reported in Saudi Arabia in 2012. Both of these two outbreaks are related to the coronavirus family. But in December 2019, the new strain of coronavirus is identified, which now we call as COVID-19. Nurin, based on the information you already gained through the newspaper, television, do you know how this virus being transmitted?
Okay. So as you said just now, the COVID-19 or we call as SARS-CoV-2 virus, it is proven that they spread through few ways. Like what I know, firstly, it can be transmitted from one person to another person through droplets released when someone is sick, basically sneezing or coughing. And through these droplets, they actually can reach the nose, mouth, and people surrounding us. So by having a close contact such as hugging, shaking hands, or kissing, we will get infected to the virus. So that's why we are not allowed to get in touch with anybody and keep our social distancing apart.
Wow, so this virus is spreads easily, right?
True. And one more thing, it can be spread by one person to another person. Instead of that, this contagious virus also can be found on the surface of object that any infected person touch the object. So that's why if we touch the contaminated surface or object, we have the tendency to get infected as well.
That's why it is important for us to wash our hair regularly using soap and water. Do you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. So since this outbreak has been infected almost 10 million people and around 500,000 of death cases, that's why we need to protect ourselves by preventing from being infected. So, Nazatul, in Malaysia context, for your information, the number of death cases already achieved 121 cases. For the overall cases, 8,606 upon until today, 26th of June.
Oh, so the number is quite huge, right?
Yes, but Malaysia is basically is in yellow achieving to green state compared to other countries.
Sounds good. Maybe the government and the frontliner takes a good action to prevent this virus from being spread.
Yes, absolutely. So we move to our next speaker. Thank you.
Okay, so next we will proceed with the symptom of COVID-19. So there are many symptoms actually, but the most common symptom that we see is actually related to the respiratory symptom. So one of the respiratory symptom that is common in individual affected with COVID-19 is shortness of breath. Shortness of breath is actually when someone feel like they are gasping for the air, and the chest may feel too tight to inhale or exhale fully. So and each shallow breath that we'll take, we will need a greater effort, and this will leaves we feel winded. So it can also feel like we are breathing through a straw. So actually, how did shortness of breath occur in COVID-19 patient? Usually, shortness of breath will occur a few days after initial infection. However, some people may also not develop this symptom, and on average, it actually occur between day 4 and day 10 of the disease course. And according to some observation from the doctor that is working in a clinic handling with this COVID-19 patient, the onset of shortness of breath usually occur along with sudden drops in the oxygen saturation after very little exertion. So this can also help the clinician to distinguish the COVID-19 symptom of shortness of breath with other common illnesses. Furthermore, this shortness of breath usually will rule out from the COVID-19 symptom, and but when it occurs with other key symptoms such as fever and cough, so the likelihood for an individual to be infected with the SARS-CoV-2 virus will actually increase. So in our normal healthy lung, our oxygen will actually cross the alveoli into tiny nearby blood vessel, which is known as capillaries, and from there the oxygen will be transported to the rest of our body. But with patient affected with COVID-19, this immune response will actually disrupt the normal oxygen transfer, because when they are infected with the virus, this will actually cause increase of the white blood cell, which will release the inflammatory molecules such as cytokines. So this will in turn rally more immune cells to kill the SARS-CoV-2 infected cells. So actually, from the shortness of breath, they can also develop into pneumonia and many more. Aman, do you have any other idea on what is the symptom of COVID-19?
So you just explained about shortness of breath as common symptoms of COVID-19. So I would like to add another two, which are fever and also diarrhea. Okay, so why does a fever or chills develop when a person contracts any kind of virus, not just coronavirus? It is because it is a coping mechanism of your body to fight against the virus, because of two specific reasons. The first one is the virus cannot survive in a high body temperature, so it will stays in your body in an extended period of time, and it will die eventually. And another reason is the fever helps to activate your immune reaction. So when there is a high temperature in your body, so it will activate all the immune cells, such as macrophages, such as your CD4, CD8 T cells, and all that, to fight or kill the virus directly or indirectly. Okay, so another symptoms which is not very common to patients who develop COVID-19 is diarrhea. So diarrhea is actually when a person have an episode of watery stool, okay, because of there is a disruption in the patient's gastrointestinal tract. This virus use ACE2 receptor as a mode of entry into a human body. So the ACE2 receptor does not only present in the lungs of a person, but it is also present in high amount in our gastrointestinal tract. So this virus will enter through this receptor, and then it will cause the disruption of dietary amino acid in our GI tract. So when there is disruption in the uptake of amino acid in our GI tract, it will cause the diversion of gut microbiota, And then when there is a diversion and also disruption in the microbiota populations in our stomach, or specifically in our GI tract, it will cause the disturbance of this pathway and eventually lead to arthritis or inflammation of the gut or GI tract. And finally, it will lead to diarrhea. So I think that is all I want to share with you guys. Thank you for listening.
So the latest news that I will be focusing on is the treatment options for COVID. There is still no cure yet, but at least there are progress. 2 treatments were found to slow the virus down and save some people from the worst effect. Until we get a vaccine, this might be the best we can hope for. From what I've read, the 2 treatments that have shown the most promise are dexamethasone and famotidine. Dexamethasone is a steroid that has been used safely in people for many years. Just a few weeks ago, a large study conducted by the Oxford University reported that this drug reduced death by 35% in patients on ventilator and by 20% in patients who needed supplemental oxygen. So, as we can see here, the survival benefit is very, very clear. This is probably the best news that we have had since the pandemic started. We finally have a drug that is cheap, easy to administer, and actually reduces mortality in very sick patients. And the second drug is famotidine. It is also a common drug sold over the counter and are used for the treatment of heartburn. However, unlike dexamethasone, the study conducted on this drug was small and not well controlled. So we have to be very cautious about jumping to conclusions on this one. But still, the results were promising. The number of patients in the study who either died or needed ventilator dropped from 22% to 10% with famotidine. Notice that I'm not including 2 drugs that have received a huge amount of press lately, which are remdesivir and hydroxychloroquine. Well, it's because even though they have shown some promising results, the benefits were very modest. And unlike the 2 drugs that I'm excited about earlier, remdesivir is very new, expensive, and not widely available. As for hydroxychloroquine, the only reason it has gotten so much attention in the first place is because it was latched onto and promoted by Donald Trump and a French scientist, Diarrhea. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but yeah, since then, several larger, much better run studies have shown either that hydroxychloroquine has no benefit, or worse, it causes harm in the form of heart arrhythmia, which can be fatal. So the main point is that we now have 2 drugs that seem to reduce mortality in the sickest patients. But despite this progress, the world still desperately needs a vaccine. Currently, over 100 vaccines are being pursued. So let's all hope that some of them succeed soon enough. That's all from me.
Okay, since Syazrah already talked about the treatment, vaccine and cure for COVID-19, I'm going to focus about the latest cases of COVID-19 in Malaysia, including the recovery rate, current number of local transmission and total number of transmission in Malaysia for this week. So I'm going to start from Monday, 22nd June 2020, announced by Health Director General Datuk Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah. Our country, Malaysia, recorded 15 cases on Monday, making the total number of infections in our country to 8,587 cases. Of the 15 cases, 2 are imported cases involving Malaysians who were infected with the virus abroad. The other 13 cases are local transmission, and all of the 13 local transmission cases involve non-Malaysians. On Tuesday, 23rd June, Malaysia recorded only 3 new COVID-19 cases, making the total number of infections in our country to 8,590 cases. And all the 3 cases are local transmission, and only 1 is a Malaysian. 1 case, a non-Malaysian, is related to the Pedas cluster in Negeri Sembilan, and the other 2 cases are related to the home death cluster in Sabah. The recovery rate on Tuesday is at 95.3% out of the total number of cases in our country. So on Wednesday, 24th June 2020, Malaysia recorded 6 new cases of COVID-19, making the total number of infections in our country to 8,596 cases. And of the 6 new cases, 4 are local transmissions and another 2 are import cases.
and all 4 local transmission cases are Malaysians, and 3 are related to 3 new COVID-19 clusters, including the Hulu Langat condominium cluster, the Bukit Bintang cluster, and the construction site cluster in Kuching, Sarawak. The recovery rate on Wednesday is 95.8%. The recovery rate in Malaysia is increasing day by day, and we almost achieve 100% of recovery rate. So the latest update, which is yesterday, 25th June 2020, Malaysia recorded only 4 new cases of COVID-19 cases, making the total number of infections in our country to 8,600. And of the 4 new cases, 1 is local transmission and another 3 are import cases. And the latest recovery rate is at 96.17%.
Alright, hi everyone. So, as we all know, in the current situation, the top highest affected countries due to the COVID-19 is, the first one is USA, which is it having 2.5 million cases, and then followed by Brazil, 1.2 million, and the last one is, the third worst is Russia, which is consists of 600k cases. So I'm gonna touch a bit about the Russia, which is it recorded its highest daily spike in coronavirus, which is it having 153 new coronavirus death in a day. And the next one, I'm gonna talk about the top Asian countries. As we all know that there's a lot of Asian countries that affected, such as Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Indonesia, but the top worst for the current situation are Indonesia, Singapore, and Philippines. Next, I'm gonna talk in details about how and why Indonesia having a high mortality rate. This is because there are 4,000 capacity hospitals that flooded by people, and then they brought the patients to the hospital, which is that they are already in critical condition. So this one makes the doctors harder to treat them. Apart from that, the medical staff being shortage of protective equipment. So this one will be the one of factors that cause to increasing number of doctors have died. For today's currently is now 6 doctors have died. So for now, as we all know that Indonesia is one of country that they are not imposed to countrywide lockdown. So the people still having a daily life like normal, like nothing happened. And this one may increase more the mortality rate in Indonesia. For the details about other countries, how they affected on how they handle the situation, I'm going to pass to Wafa. Okay, Wafa?
Hi. As we know that globally, there are several countries have been reported as top countries have successfully contained COVID. Example of that in Asia, Vietnam. It is one of the best countries that have contained and controlled the COVID-19. Even though with a close border with China, Vietnam government acted strongly early, even before the WHO said the outbreak was a global public health emergency. And today, there is not even a single dead case have been reported yet from this disease. How they achieved that? They achieved it by doing a lot of testing, contact and tracing, and quarantine. Another example, Malaysia. Malaysia has been recognized as among the 5 nations in the world in containing and controlling the spread of COVID-19. As we know that, the movement control order started from the 18th of March until 31st of August. Another example in Europe countries, Slovenia. Even though with the close border with Italy, their government take a strong action to protect their citizens from being got affected from this disease. How they achieve it? This one from the aggressive early lockdown, quarantine of sick people, as well as the government was generous for spreading to treat this disease. Secondly, I'm going to talk about the second wave. Medically, second wave refers to the resurgence of infection in a different part of a population after an initial decrease. In Asia, there are several countries they got affected. They got a second wave of coronavirus, like China, Japan, South Korea, and Jordan. The reason of that, why? Because they reopened the patterned economics, and after they returned back to the daily routine, there are a lot of cases being discovered, and they demand that the cases will be keeping going up unless the scientists will discover a new drug. I think that's all for me. Thank you.
Alright, guys, and now we're moving on to prevention, featuring
Jaja,
And Yana!
become together.
Yana!
Okay, Yana, what we gonna talk today, Yana?
Okay, so today we're gonna talk about the prevention that we can do for prevent current
COVID-19.
current pandemic crisis, COVID-19. Okay, so Jaja, maybe you can start first.
Okay, now we're gonna share two tips.
Yeah,
Firstly, that is
5M.
5M. First is to manage your health. When you in fever, cough, or sneezing, you just stay at home and relax and quarantine for 14 days. Next.
The second M, maintain clean hands. Because through good personal hygiene of regular hands, you can do it by wash your hands or use hand sanitizer to make sure your hands is always clean. The next one.
The third one, that is to minimize contact. With other people, you will apart for 1 meter away, so it cannot be spread widely. Okay, next.
Okay, number four for 5M, which is wear your mask when you feel unwell. And if you feel unwell also, you need to seek medical doctor immediately. Yeah, and the last M.
Okay, for the last M, that is to monitor the news. Don't spread fake news, but instead you have to search the real news from the MOH. Next tips.
Okay, for the next one, which is WASHUP. Wash up. The first one, W. Wash hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. Because of what? Because if you wash your hand with no soap lower than 20 seconds, the bacteria will still there. So you need to make sure you wash your hand more than 20 seconds. 1 minute also
Wash
can.
Wash your hands. Next, that is A. Avoid contact with sick people. Okay, just stay away 1 meter apart. Okay, next.
S. Sanitize frequently the surface that you touch, because there might be some viral bacteria at the surface. So make sure to sanitize, okay?
Okay. Okay, next. H. Home. Home sweet home. Just stay home because your home is your heaven. Don't go out many times.
Yes.
Okay? Next.
U. Use tissue or elbow to cover cough and sneeze. Like this. Woo!
Oh my god. Bacteria. Okay. For the last one, put your hands down and away from your eyes, nose and mouth, because this virus can go through your eyes, through your nose and through your mouth, and you will get sick. So don't do that. Just let your hands down. Okay. That's all for the prevention. Ooh, so remember 5M and
WASHUP.
wash up.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Alright, guys, that's it for today from the Pulse Unscripted podcast in COVID-19 special. So I would like to thank you all my teammates to make this to come to fruition, and hope you enjoy it. Bye bye.